Welcome to the Hockey Writers Union Junction, a weekly show from our Columbus Blue Jackets insider, Mark Scheig, bringing you the latest news, rumors, trades, player grades, game results, and much more. From training camp to the playoffs, from draft day to the trade deadline, he covers everything that happens with the Jackets. So get ready. It's time for another get-together at Union Junction.
All right, welcome back to Union Junction, Thursday, November 11th, 2021. Mark and Nick with you. Special show today for the first time since we've rebranded our show to Blue Jackets Only. We're going to have two guests for you, and we're honored to be joined by our first guest right now. Blue Jackets have a couple games in the coming week here, one against the Washington Capitals, and so figure we bring on one of the best hockey writers you can follow when it comes to Capitals coverage, Sammi Silber. Used to be with the Hockey Writers. Hi, Sammi.
How you guys doing?
Oh, we couldn't be better now that you're here. How are you?
Oh, that's an honor. I'm hanging. I'm doing well. The dog's being crazy, so we're rocking and rolling.
Now, are you doing as good as Alexander Ovechkin these days?
I don't know if any of us can ever attain, the always feeling great of Alex Ovechkin.
The goals, obviously, people follow for that, but how about the pizza delivery driver? Sammi, fill us in on this. What is going on down there that he's delivering pizzas?
Yeah, so we were basically sitting there, and we the media room, it's right across from the rink. So we were sitting there and we saw him carrying these boxes, and I was like, what's going on there? And we saw he's carrying, Papa John's pizza. I guess they were doing, a little bit of promotion. Mm-hmm. I skated across the ice with it, and I was like, all right, we need to go check this out. So me and Tarek El-Bashir from The Athletic, we head on out to see what was going on. And he peeked over and he said, you guys want? And he came over with the pizzas, and he dropped them in the media room, and he dropped one. And he was like, when you hungry, you hungry. And he walked out, and it was a fun time. It was very random, something I don't think any of us were expecting on a Wednesday afternoon, but it was a major, it was a great gesture. It was a lot of fun. It was a good time. It was good pizza too. So
yeah, and that's what I think that makes him even more special outside of what he does on the ice. You guys are able to experience that, and you said it. It was just fun, and I think everything that's going on right now in this world, we all could use a little bit of fun, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you need that upbeat, optimism, and to have it from a captain and a guy like that, it's fun to see, not just off the ice, but on the ice. He's having a great time this season. I mean, you could tell in the way that he's playing. He's, playing unbelievable, but a lot of it just comes from, he worked hard in the summer. He's, moving well. He's having a good time, and, he's a man on a mission, and his teammates love him. He's a great presence, very prominent presence on the ice. And it's a lot. It's fun to watch as a journalist, but it's unbelievable to realize, in this generation, what we're seeing, this goal scoring, this modern day goal scorer who's climbing this list. It's honestly incredible.
He's really brought out a lot of personality, as have a lot of Russian players in recent years. They've really brought out a lot of personality. Let's talk about another Russian guy on the Capitals. You released a piece recently about Kuznetsov. This is a guy that maybe a lot of people were thinking, could he be traded? And now it seems like he's doing okay. Sammi, tell us about Kuznetsov.
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head there. It's over the summer, there was a lot of trade speculation and, trade rumors, really. And then, around draft time, we kind of touched base with Brian McClellan, who, was like, whoa, like we never, said that we're trading him, which if you listen to the, exit interviews, they did not say that. But there were high expectations for him heading into the season. I mean, there were, off ice issues over the past couple of years, and you see the inconsistency a little bit in his game, and in the COVID shortened season, you see him test positive twice, and there's a lot going on there, and he came back to camp in tremendous shape. You could tell he was moving well. You could tell that he was mentally there. He said he was mentally there. And, he pointed out something interesting. He kind of like did an analogy a little bit to being in a mindset of, he was feeling as if the same way that he would probably feel if he dropped a game 7 in the playoffs. And he said, you don't want to feel that pain again. So he came in, he was ready to prove his critics wrong. And he has so far. I mean, you look at his numbers, but also beyond that, what I was talking about in my piece a little bit was he's, taken on a bigger role in the penalty kill. He's winning faceoffs. He's dangerous in the offensive zone. He's, dangerous on the penalty kill. He can make creative plays. He's very crafty, but he's smart about it. He's not just going and making these, trying to make highlight reel plays without really he thinks the game very fast. And he skates very well. And he as Anthony Mantha said, he will find you, on the ice. And he's having a blast. It's the same thing. You see, he said he wanted to get the smile back in his game, and that's exactly what's happened. I think he's enjoying himself. He's having a good time. He came into camp with the right mindset. He's having an honest conversation with the coaching staff, and he knows the expectations that are ahead of him. We know the stakes, of the National Hockey League and, this level. So it's great play all around. And it's good for Washington to see, especially now, with Nicholas Backstrom out and, you have Oshie out, you have a lot of guys out. So you need guys like Kuznetsov to step up, and that's what he's done so far.
Sammy, you read my card. You must have cheated here, because my next question was the injury situation.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't surprise me that you would look at my card like this, but Anthony Mantha, TJ Oshie, Nicholas Backstrom, perhaps some others. When can we expect any of them back, or any of them even close to coming back at this point? Just kind of reset that situation for us.
Yeah, I mean, it's you look at the roster, and there's quite a few guys out. Backstrom's making progress. You've seen him skating on his own out there on the ice. Before practice, he hasn't gotten on the ice with the team yet. There's no high intensity drills. He's eligible to come off the LTIR now, but as you can see, he's the Caps want to take a slow and steady approach, and you need to at this point. He's he still has absolute star power. And he is, an incredible center. And you really don't want to see that, go downhill if he's not healthy.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't want to play an injured player ever. It doesn't matter the circumstances. So he's been skating on his own, progressing. They're taking it slow. They're not going to force him back until he's comfortable. And then, you have Oshie, who he blocked a shot, and you could kind of see that it wasn't, a pretty play. And, you find out that he's put on the RIR and he's out week to week. It's the same thing as Backstrom, it's progress. I don't necessarily, you're not seeing him whipping around the ice right now, but he's in a walking boot, and, he's going to take the time to get to where he needs to be. And then Anthony Mantha, he's on the shelf indefinitely. He had to get shoulder surgery after, a kind of a strange play in Florida that took place. And so he's out there. And then today, Nick Dowd moved to the IR. You could see him against Buffalo. He was skating in the second period, and you just kind of saw him go down, and he, head off. It's not the same injury that was bothering him earlier in the season per Laviolette, but it is one that he said we'll keep him out, quote unquote, a little bit. So right now there's quite the list. And then Vitek Vanacek, he was on the ice for practice. Contrary to Twitter mania, he did not undergo any surgery. He is not out week to week. Any reports of that are absolutely false.
Watch the fakes.
Yeah, watch the fakes, look for the check marks.
Yep.
Luckily I wasn't I didn't fall for it. But no, it's it's there's still Zach Fucali came up from Hershey. 3 goalies are going to travel on this road trip. So, when Caps see you, it could be, Sammy in net. It could be Vitek in net. It could be Zach in net. They're going to monitor the injuries. As Laviolette pointed out, you can wake up one day and feel fantastic. You can wake up the next day and feel terrible, So a lot going on. A lot going on.
Real quick note up for Blue Jackets fans. Remember, Capitals Blue Jackets on Friday. That's the second half of a back-to-back for them. So that'll actually be an interesting decision when we get to that point. Go ahead, Nick.
And so we mentioned all these injuries. Who, for the average Blue Jackets fan, they might not know a lot of the names that they're going to see on the ice. Who's somebody that maybe they should be watching out for come Friday?
You got to watch out for Connor McMichael. That kid, 100%. Has risen to the occasion big time. He was a rookie coming in this year, and there were expectations for him to, he was AHL ready. The question was, where is he going to slot in? Because going into camp, you thought you had a fully healthy roster. That wasn't the case. And, now you've seen him enter in for, these missing players. He's playing on the top 6 now. He's on a 3-game point streak. He's starting to find his, it's all starting to come in for him on the score sheet. It's even before that. I mean, he was getting pucks to the net. He was making high danger, chances. He was skating well at both ends. He get more confident in puck battles. And even he said the other day, it's about the trust that he's getting from the coaching staff. As he gains that trust and that responsibility, you can really see him, coming into his own, and you can, it's incredible to watch, these kids who come in. And sorry, my dog is scratching the couch. It's amazing to, see these kids come in and the turnaround that takes, because you can be in, Hershey one day and get the call that somebody went down and you need to come up, and you get the call and you get on a plane and you fly up. But Connor McMichael definitely, because he's just starting to find the score sheet. Brett Leeson, I think he's looked really sharp in his first couple games. He's a big guy, 6'5". He skates well. He can get, to the front of the net. He's a great skater. And you have Martin Ferravari. He's not necessarily filling in for an injured guy. He kind of won that spot, at training camp. He won that first pairing spot. Michael Kempney was close to coming back, and he just wasn't, when you come off, major injuries to your leg right, that you're not going to be NHL ready right away. So Ferravari's kind of taken on a major role as a rookie, and he's skating well, and he's playing great at both ends. He's making good passes, and, he's somebody to watch as well. He can be dangerous at both ends, and he cut you down very well.
Less than a minute to go real quick. So last 20 seconds here, Sammy.
Okay.
Do you consider the Blue Jackets and Capitals rivals still, even after the year off?
That's a good question. I think so. I mean, any Metro Division team is going to be a rival, right? I mean, it's a team you haven't seen in a long time. I think, those really that bad, not even bad blood. I mean, that those tensions kind of rise once you're on the ice.
Yep.
So I think it remains to be seen, but any Metro Division game, it's a fight for points right now.
Always is.
Yeah. So.
Yep. Good stuff. And fans, make sure you follow Sammy on Twitter at Sammy_Silber. She writes for Washington Hockey Now. One of the better Capitals followers out there. Sammy, we really appreciate you joining us on Union Junction today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me and putting up with my dog. I appreciate it, guys.
Pat Kuzi for us. The real star of the show here is her dog.
Mm-hmm.
And fans, we're great guests coming up next. Stay tuned. We're going to have the great Ken Kal, the radio voice of the Detroit Red Wings, joining us. So stick right here with Union Junction. We'll be right back.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Welcome back to part 2 of Union Junction. Nick and Mark back with you. Hope you enjoyed the first interview we had with Sammi Silber talking Washington Capitals. And now we switch our focus to the suddenly red hot Detroit Red Wings, and the Blue Jackets get to play the Red Wings for the second time this season on Monday. And joining us now is the radio voice of the Detroit Red Wings. You can hear him on 97.1 in Detroit. the great Ken Kal. How you doing, Ken?
Good, Mark. Good, Nick. How's everything tonight?
Couldn't be better. It's hockey season's going. The Detroit Red Wings are suddenly playing really good hockey, and I guess that's where I wanted to start with you. They beat the Oilers, and not many teams can say that they've been able to do that 4-2 the other night. Is there an excitement that you've seen now in and around this team that you haven't seen in the last few years, given the way the season started?
Yeah, I really do. I think that it all wraps around two young players who are just off to brilliant starts, and that's Lucas Raymond, the high-scoring forward for Detroit. Good overall game, and Morris Seider on the blue line. And Mo Seider's been terrific. For a 19-year-old kid to grasp that position and play the way he's played. I mean, he looks like a 10-year vet out there on the blue line. So, and Tyler Bertuzzi's another player who's been really lighting it up. I believe he's got 9 goals this year. So those 3 players in particular, but it's the overall team game, I think, that has really made the Red Wings more successful this year.
Nick?
Yeah, sorry, Ken, I got to say, I'm a little starstruck. I grew up listening to your calls. I'm from Southwestern Ontario. So man, you are at the top of the broadcasting world for me. Let me ask you about kind of geographically, Columbus and Detroit are, they're right beside each other pretty much. And we see that Michigan and Ohio State, that rivalry. Do you feel like that's carried over into hockey at all, or?
I think at times, Nick, it is. And, I think for a number of years, the Red Wings were always making the playoffs, and the Blue Jackets, they weren't making the playoffs, and they were trying to build their franchise. And it was just taking a while for them to get to where they're at and be a successful franchise where I think they're at right now. And they continue to keep moving up, and they're hoping one day that they can win a Stanley Cup. But I don't see it just yet, because I think once you get where the Red Wings are really good and the Blue Jackets are really good, then you have the rivalry there. And when you meet the playoffs, I think that's when the rivalry begins. And we always talk about the Red Wings Avalanche rivalry in years gone by, and what a rivalry that was back in the day. And that's because it seemed like whoever was going to win the cup had to go through either Detroit or Colorado. And man, they had some really good playoff series. So I think down the road, if the Red Wings and the Blue Jackets meet in the playoffs and start having some pretty good series, then I think you're going to see the rivalry like the Michigan-Ohio State football rivalry.
Ken Kal, radio voice of the Detroit Red Wings, joining us in Union Junction. And Ken, besides beating the Oilers, the Red Wings have won 3 games in a row here after that 5-1 loss against Boston. What have you seen in those 3 games that they were able to turn it around?
Well, they started off really well, and they were pretty good defensively. And then all of a sudden, that kind of went away. And there were a couple of reasons why I think that happened. One is Tyler Bertuzzi's still not vaccinated, and he couldn't make a trip to Canada. And we've been to Canada a couple times already. We've been to Montreal twice, and they beat us both games in Montreal. Then we went to Toronto, and even though the Red Wings played pretty well, they still lost 5-4 to the Maple Leafs. And that's when Mitch Marner started getting hot. And, the team was struggling a little bit, and then they seemed to find it against Detroit. It was a 1-goal game. The Red Wings continued to fight their way back in that one, but ended up losing 5-4. And then the next 2 games, the Red Wings played, they couldn't do anything. They lost 3-0 to Montreal. They lost 6-1 or 5-1 to Boston, and that top line of Boston just decimated Detroit. And things weren't even looking good the next game in Buffalo, when it wasn't until late in the third period when Bertuzzi scored a pair of back-to-back goals. And then all of a sudden, it just seemed like the Red Wings caught fire. And from that point on, after the overtime goal by Mo Seider, his first in the National Hockey League, they came back home to start a 4-game road trip. They beat a pretty good team in Vegas, even though they've got a lot of injuries, and beat them quite sound. And then they played the Oilers really tough yesterday. And everybody was talking about the Oilers' power play. Both teams had 2 power play chances in that hockey game. The Oilers were 50% on the power play going into that game, and they didn't score a power play goal. So defensively speaking, I think the Red Wings overall tightened it up. McDavid scored a goal, but Draisaitl really wasn't on the score sheet. So they did a pretty good job containing him and the rest of the team. And I just think the third and fourth lines now are just playing really good for Detroit. And in order for the Red Wings to have success, all four lines have to be going. And I think when they were losing to Montreal and they were losing to Boston, the top line was going, but the other three lines weren't. So right now they're getting balanced scoring. Everybody's chipping in their own particular way. And I think the goaltenders, Nedeljkovic and also Thomas Greiss, have really played well for Detroit.
So you mentioned that kind of like in the short term of things, how things are going. Let's take a step back and look at the long term. When they brought in Steve Yzerman, it was like, we're going to take this slow. We're going to do a rebuild. Do you think that they're on schedule, or would you say that they're a little bit ahead of schedule with how they've been playing recently?
Yeah, that's a really good question, but I think they are on schedule. And I've always said they needed a surprise. They needed somebody like a Lucas Raymond who really kind of came out of nowhere and really is a dominant player. And in fact, on a game-to-game basis, he's been the best player for the Red Wings, him and Tyler Bertuzzi and Sider back there on the blue line. So I would say right now they're on progress. There's still going to be some more pain. It's not going to be where they're going to turn the switch and then they're going to be a Stanley Cup team overnight. But Steve Yzerman's doing this the right way. He's building through the draft. He wants to keep the payroll down. He wants to keep the team competitive. And then once the team starts getting competitive and all the young players that they drafted start becoming really good Detroit Red Wing players, then you can go out in the free agent market and maybe plug a few holes for the final pieces of the puzzle. So I would say they're right on target right now. And again, I watched all the draft choices that are playing right now in Sweden especially, and there's some really good talent over there. So I think the Red Wings in the years to come, it's still going to take some time, but when you start seeing Edvinsson coming over and Soderblom and some of the other guys, Albert Johansson, they're going to have a really good team, especially on the blue line.
Ken, you had a front row seat at Traverse City, and it's one thing that you get the honor of doing every year, is we get to hear a lot of your calls, whether it be with the Red Wings or even calling other teams' games in the Prospects tournament. And you're able to get a front row seat this year to Yegor Chinakhov and Cole Sillinger for the Blue Jackets. And now the way that they're playing, they're both playing top line with Jake Voracek coming in. But just from what you saw of those two in particular, just what impressed you the most about the run they had up there?
Sillinger was terrific, and I think he was the best player. And that whole Columbus team actually looked pretty good. I think out of all the teams that we've seen play or the games that I've called, Sillinger to me was really good. I don't know, is it Chinakhov or?
Yeah, Chinakhov is how they like to do
okay.
it. Yes.
Chinakhov was really good too. He scored his share of goals in a couple of those games. And what amazes me about both of those players is their compete level. Mm-hmm. And you can really see it when players compete hard. You can really see it, especially in a prospects tournament when they're playing amongst their peers. And that's what really stood out. And Sillinger's got a really good shot. He to me, he can get that puck off quickly. We've seen a couple of nice chances and a couple of nice goals by him. And Chinakhov, to me, looks like he's a pretty solid skater and, pretty smart player and pretty solid defensively too. So they're very talented. And to me, in that tournament, out of all the teams, like I mentioned, Columbus to me seemed like the best team in the tournament.
I asked this question of our last guest, Ken, and I think it's important that, you hammered a bit on Mo Sider and Lucas Raymond. Who do you think are some other guys that maybe Blue Jackets fans should be looking out for when they meet up?
Well, you know what? I think the top line of Detroit is starting to really come of age. And you've got Dylan Larkin, Tyler Bertuzzi, and Lucas Raymond on that top line. And I think this year, from a game-to-game basis, when all three have been in the lineup together, Larkin missed some games, 3 games because of personal reasons. Bertuzzi, as we mentioned, didn't travel to Canada. But when they're together, they really make things happen out onto the ice. Another player that comes to mind that really kind of had a slow start, but he's starting to pick up the pace a little bit, is Pius Suter. And he was a player that played for the Chicago Blackhawks last year. He always seemed to kill the Red Wings. He had a hat trick against Detroit. So I think Steve Yzerman was saying, hey, you know what? If he's going to kill us, we might as well sign him to a contract. And they wooed him over. So he's been playing pretty steady for Detroit as well. they've got some veterans on their team like Sam Gagne, who's been playing on a third and fourth line that have been pretty solid players. They play in all different. He plays in all different types of situations. And then back there on the blue lines, I mentioned with Seider, you've got Philip Hronek, and he's been around for several years now, and he continues to lead the team back there in the blue lines in minutes. Kind of a hard-nosed type player, isn't afraid to mix it up and get in there. He's got a really good shot too. He'll play a lot of power play time, penalty kill time. So he's another player back there I think Columbus fans can look at.
Ken, just got two more real quick before I let you go. Wanted to ask you about Dylan Larkin, the captain of the team. I just wonder, from your point of view, how has he acclimated himself to the role, and how is he growing as a leader in your sight?
Well, it's a learning process, I think, and he suffered a really bad injury at the end of last year. He was taking a face-off against Jamie Benn, and Ben actually came down with a cross check and right on the neck, and he spent the entire summer, rehabbing, wearing a neck brace, and he didn't even know if he was going to be able to get ready for training camp. But he worked through it and wants to play, competes hard. He's really good as amongst his peers. So I think it's still a learning curve for Dylan. And, this is his team basically, but he's one of the leaders out there on the ice, and he leads by example. And I think he can look back to some of the other captains that the Red Wings have had in years gone by, like Henrik Zetterberg, Nicholas Lidstrom, Steve Yzerman. They all were the same kind of guys. They weren't rah-rah guys. They weren't out there yelling and screaming. But what they did was they went and they played by example, led by example. They'd go out onto the ice and do the job on a night-to-night basis. And that's one of the things that I think Dylan Larkin has started to get better at is that he knows that he's got to compete hard each and every night, in order to stay in the National Hockey League and be a force in the National Hockey League. And we all know he's a great skater. He can really move. He's one of the fastest guys in the league. And now he's just trying to work his way in, do his magic. And I think he really feels comfortable too on that top line with Lucas Raymond and Tyler Bertuzzi. They all work together well.
And Ken, last one for you here. Monday, the two teams, the Blue Jackets and the Red Wings, get together. Now, first time, it is a 0-0 game going all the way into the third period before the Red Wings kind of broke it open against Jonas Korpisalo. Do you expect a similar type of tight checking game there? What are some of the keys you're looking for?
Well, Columbus, it's a tough building to play in. And recently, I think over the last 4 or 5 years, the Red Wings really won a game at Nationwide Arena. So, the environment there, the crowd's really good all the time. And I can remember when the Red Wings, or when Columbus first came into the league, it was almost an easy 2 points going into Columbus, but not anymore. And they're really competitive and they really play you hard. And I think it's going to be a tightly contested game. I don't think it'll be a blowout by any means, but usually it's a 1 or 2 goal game. And over the last several years, like I mentioned, Columbus seems to have had the edge on Detroit. So, the Red Wings won their game at Little Caesars Arena. It might be a little bit of a different story there in Columbus, but for Detroit, it's the first game of 4 straight on the road before the Thanksgiving holiday. They come back and play St. Louis before Thanksgiving. So they're coming off a long 8-day road trip. They've got 4 games at home here. So they want to get off to a good start. And after the Columbus game, it's right off to Dallas to play the next night against the Stars. So it's a busy schedule for Detroit. They're playing a lot of hockey in the month of November, and it'll be good. Both teams, I believe, will be well rested. So I think you'll see the energy really high in that hockey game, and I think it's going to be a close game.
Fans, it should be very interesting, like he said. And make sure you follow Ken. He's out on Twitter at Ken Kal DRW. Listen to him and Paul Woods on the radio still. Ever since 1994 for me is when I first listened to you. So
it's been a while,
for a long time. But Ken, we really appreciate you taking the time to get us set up for the Red Wings and talking Red Wings. So thank you for joining us.
Always a pleasure, Mark. Always a pleasure, Nick. And you guys have fun. We'll see you maybe in Columbus, huh?
Yeah, we'll see you around. That's for sure. Thanks for joining us on the show tonight, fans. We'll talk to you next week. Until then, take care of yourselves. Have a great week.